Okay, I want to give an update on this Unico ULM26 here. So one of the things that I've been running into since I got this has been that you're fighting with resolution here. Uh, the website, per their documentation, states that this is a 1600 by 1200 panel, and that's interesting to me because uh, we can look here. If we look at their on their website here, you're going to see all the stats here. 4x3, which is again, it's fantastic for anyone that's looking for a 4x3 panel. This is the reason why a lot of us bought this, right? It's showing that it's a 25.7-inch active panel, 4x3, 16 color, 16 color tested, and so that's troubling to me that they say tested here because sure you can feed a resolution to a panel and have it report a lot of stuff back, and I think that's what's happening here, guys. I don't think this panel is 1600 by 1200, and I think they know it, and they're not messing up to it. This is troubling because um, I think this panel is something else, and it's something far worse. So again, the website says that, but the problem is their information here, according to their own paperwork that they provided, states that this panel is a 1280 by 1024 and 1280 by 960 CGA EGA, which that's okay, that's fine. But the problem is that when you reach out to them and say that, hey, the website says one thing and your it says another, they state, oh no, this is wrong, that this is from a prototype and that this shouldn't have been sent out, that the website information is correct. You then try to choose 1600 by 1200 in Windows. And again, this comes back to another conversation. They are really stating on their website that this is an arcade. What are they calling it? Arcade CRT replacement LCD, and that's fine, but you can't stop people from using a panel how they want. And again, I reemphasize that they didn't just put a CGA EGA input on this thing. If you look at the bottom of this panel here, you are going to see that they are providing a VGA, DB15 or whatever you want to call it, HDMI, and a CGA EGA RGBS port for JAMA. And that means that while the VGA port could be used for something like Naomi or Dreamcast, which would be 480p, HDMI means that you'd be able to feed it more. And according to the website, it's 1600 by 1200, which is important to note because that is that 1600 by 1200 would be a 1600 by 1200 would be 5x integer scaled of 320 by 240 content, which is great. Things like the RetroTink and the Mister would be fantastic to plug in your either actual hardware, your actual arcade hardware, or the Mister project through the RetroTink. My point is this panel when you plug it into something that isn't 240p content, right? Because again, I have to emphasize, if you put 240p content in here, you grab an actual JAMA board and you output RGBS into this panel. The panel is going to scale that content. The 240p content is going to be scaled to whatever the native resolution of that panel is. If you feed a panel anything less than what it is, it will stretch it to what the pixels are on the panel. That's how LCDs work. That is the reason why things like the RetroTink exist. Things why the Morph is coming out. Why we do HDMI mods on some of these older consoles. It's the reason why people do HDMI mods on their CPS2 boards and CPS3 boards, so that you can upscale to things like LCDs that have a native resolution higher than the original 240p content, right? So it's nice that you have a monitor that you can plug a JAMA board, an actual arcade board right into, and it syncs at 15 kilohertz, which is good. But the problem is and we all know this, we should know this, and if you don't, this might be the first time you've heard this, but a panel that isn't running at the right res, it means that the actual board itself, the driver for the LCD, is going to be doing the scaling. And that is the reason why things like the retro exist, because if you plug a Nintendo through composite into a 4K OLED, you're going to get lag because the driver on the panel is doing the scaling for you. You're going to get a softer image. You're going to get screen tearing. You're going to get ghosting. You're going to get tons of input lag. You hit a button, you're going to see multiple millisecond, from the time you hit the jump button and Mario actually does something. And some people have adapted to that. Some people are okay with that. But that is not the way the content is meant to be played. And if I'm going to be replacing a CRT in my expensive cabinet, I want it to be the best it can be. This is not an arcade one-up. This is not meant. I mean, they are stating that this is for arcade replacements. And if I'm an arcade purist, I want to be sure that I'm getting the best quality for my board inside of my cabinet. That said, I bought one of these, or about two of them actually. But I bought this because it was advertised as 1600 by 1200, which would be 5x integer scaled for 320 for 240p content, which is important because that means that things like the Mister that have things like the TMNT core has just been released can do 5x integer scaled. I have a TMNT cabinet that you've seen in probably other videos, and I have plugged this in on the Mister, and I have told it to run it at 1600 by 1200, and it works somewhat. There is still some funkiness in the way that it presents the pixels. It's not as sharp as it should be, which tracks with what they've stated. If I plug this into Windows, you only get 1024 768 as the resolution. You get also 1080p, which is obviously incorrect, but 768 as an option, which is 4:3 768, which is fine, but that is not what the resolution is supposed to be for this panel. When you message them, they state that this is a problem with the firmware, that this is a problem with the firmware, and that they are going to have this fixed soon. That this is one of those things that it's not they're looking into it. They weren't aware. People were going to be plugging this into things that weren't arcade hardware, and so that normally wouldn't be a big deal. But the problem is that this is an LCD, and the panel, the panel was going to be plugged into other things. So they said that they didn't test it, which is troubling again, because this is important. So like again, if you try to plug this into Windows, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get present this. You're going to get a where did it go here? So this is me plugging it into Windows, and I'm trying to create a custom resolution under the NVIDIA driver, and it's not letting me. It says custom resolution 1600 is not supported by your display. This is again troubling. If you look at the website, 1200, and there's some conversations here. Hey guys, I'm doing some testing for review, and I'm missing something. I have two different specs here, and they said it kind of, like I said, it was kind of a big deal, and that that this should be something that needs to be addressed. And so the conversation then turned into, is this a firmware? I'm guessing it's I thought it was a Realtek chip that's maybe on this board. And they stated, monitor is set to default 768 right now. With Windows, you need to go into the driver to force it. They're working on a firmware. So that's already two different things. Hardware is one thing. Hardware that is reporting 768, and drivers another. But they then state, and again, like if you see here, once you get to the resolution, we noted that most modern video cards make it blurry. Okay, that's not how it works, but okay. But if you go into RetroArch, and again, I've plugged this into not modern video cards. I've plugged this into analog, signal, VGA, pre-NVIDIA 960 cards that support native VGA. So that has nothing to do with it, but I'll continue. So then I stated, so if I load like Batocera, for example, will 1600 work? And it's like, mostly it's a Windows driver is the main issue, is what they state. And that is not correct. Again, they state that why Windows generic was not acting right, so the native res signature were not 1280 for the panel. Like the insert is incorrect. It should have been changed from the first prototype. And I'm like, well, I tried it on Mac as well, and Mac does the same thing. So it's not a Windows issue. And Mac is also reporting the same thing. So that's already kind of a thing, a bigger deal. They then state that I'll verify the actual resolution with the engineering team. And again, this was over a week ago. This was on the 14th of August. And sure, in 48 hours they'll know, but they've tested it with a Taito Type X, which again is a PC running Windows. I just want to reemphasize that a Taito Type X is a PC running Windows. That is not anything special. It is a super micro board inside of a PC case. I know because I have one. A Taito Type X, it is a super micro board with a custom BIOS running NVIDIA 960 at the latest, I think, is the highest card that came in the Type 4 for Street Fighter 5. And it is just a PC running Windows. Street Fighter and all of those are just a executable in Windows. They are just PC games. So again, that's something else that needs to be mentioned here, that they keep saying that they've real hardware, but they tested it on a Type 4 and they're getting 600, which is impossible that they're getting 600 1200 because you would have to force it. But my point is they then try to tell me that, resolutions are, 4x3 resolutions, which I know 4x3 resolutions are. My point is here is that, yes, they'll keep in touch on the status of the monitor, and which they didn't. I reached out again. So anywho, I reached out again. In the meantime, I did some more testing, and again, I ran into more problems. I tried to run this on Batocera, which they stated would work, right? Because it's Linux, it's not Windows, it's not a driver issue, and it should function. So in Batocera, for example, I am getting maximum. I'm getting 1920 by 1080 and 640 by 480, and then I'm getting highest resolution I can choose is 1024 by 768. That's the highest resolution I can choose, or 1280 by 1024, which again is funky when you try to select it. My point is it's not giving me the 1600 by 1200 option. So that is troubling. Again, it's not giving me the resolution I'm looking for. It's only giving me the highest I can get is 1024 by 768 or that 1280 by 1024. And again, this is whatever the driver board is reporting is what it's giving me, and this is what I'm seeing here. So again, talking to them again, I reach out, and I'm getting more funkiness from them. They state they believe it's an overall detection issue, definitely something that needs to be fixed. But all right, so yet again, it's detecting it. They plan a bunch of issues to resolve. They plan a bunch of things to resolve this issue. So then I ask, how would the normal consumer update this? Does this board have a JTAG port? Is there some way to talk to it without extra hardware? And so this again goes back to the whole like, how would you do this? This isn't a USB port. How would normal person plug this into their computer to run an update? This isn't a smart device. This is a panel. And that's where they say, I'm not sure, it could be one of the JST connectors. They are right. Here is the driver board on my second screen. And that right there is a UART port right there. You can see that UART TXRX, ground, and voltage. So they're going to expect the normal user to have to flash a firmware on this thing. Now, once I pulled this out, some things got a little more murky. This board right here is an LVDS board. So you can see right there, LVDS. So as soon as I pulled this out, I then pulled off the back shielding. And this is where things got even messier. The problem here, folks, is that one, this is the board right here. And as you will see in a second, pull this off here. So one, they definitely lasered off that chip. Whatever that chip is, they have lasered it off. That's fine. A lot of people have to do that for proprietary purposes. They don't want other people to kind of clone it. I get that, but that's troubling to me because I can't find any identifiers on this thing. So if I then keep going here, this is the Tcon board. This is the board that drives the panel. The panel, basically, this is what reports to that driver board what this panel is. Now, do you see that right there? Let's do a quick search for this particular number and see what comes up, because this is where things get even worse. This is something that this is troubling because let's go ahead and look it up. I'll continue here. Oh, sorry, here we go. It's what is it? I'm going to pull it up. PT32 0 AT025XR1. All right, folks. Here is something that is troubling to me. If I pull this up on Google, you're going to get all sorts of results, right? And of course, panel look is the first one. Panel look gives a lot of information regarding LCDs and panels and whatever else. And so they're not always correct. So I did more searching, but this is the first one that came up, and this is what's troubling here. This is showing up as a 32-inch TV. That's not what this is, but the model number does say 32 in it, so that kind of says a lot. It is showing resolution of 1366 by 768, and that is a big deal. WXGA. So this panel here is this 4x3 26-inch panel is being driven by a Tcon board that is meant to work at 1366 by 768. Not 1600 by 1200, not more than 1600 by 1200. If this board was a board that was meant to run 1600 by 1200, it would be a board that could handle that particular resolution. But that Tcon board, the top is 768. You can feed a panel more, but it's going to just still run it at 768 or the equivalent of that. So if you force something to go to 1600 by 1200, it's still at the 1024 768. That's the problem. It's subsampling. It's you're running a resolution higher. That's no different than you taking, if you're familiar with PC gaming, you have a 1080p panel, but you run a game at 1440p and run it on your 1080p panel. You then have it's subsampling. You can do more things with it. It looks good. That's fine. The point is that is not what the native resolution of this panel is, which is troubling because the pixels aren't there. And that is a big deal. Again, if I back up and keep looking, I'm like, oh, maybe the panel look is incorrect or whatever. If I keep looking for that number, it pops up all sorts of places. Here is the LCD logic board, which is the second board on here. This board is on here, or a one of like this board, and that again is another 32-inch LCD, 32-inch model panel. 32-inch model TV is what you're getting here, and yeah, this is again. If I keep going, if I keep looking for that model number, product spec sheet. And again, this is a different O2, but I'm guessing those are revisions of it. 2019. You're going to get timings. And here we go. It's applied to a 31.5-inch model, 1360 by 768 HD mode with 16.7 million colors. Yeah, this is the 4x3 panel. See, here we go right there. This is a 4x3 panel. But that's one of the problems that we've been running into with this panel is that when you try to feed it certain resolutions, it wants to put it in full widescreen. So again, I've gone further, and I've gone further into kind of like trying to find more about this panel. I opened it up even further, and I was trying to see if I can get if I can get a different number, maybe deeper in the panel. Because again, if there's another identifying number, I could, maybe they're using surplus from one model from a TV to drive this panel. But again, if they're using surplus, they would use a Tcon board that can handle that resolution or more. But this board is not designed for 1600 1200. So this panel is not that. This is not advertised, and that's troubling. Again, if I go here and I hit, you can
all right. I've taken it apart as far as you can go.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna mute that. But yeah, let's take it apart as far as I can go here, and you can see here that if you go further and further behind the glass, you don't get any more identifying numbers. So, long story short, long 20-minute video about this. I'm just trying to be very thorough about this. This panel, this hardware is not 1600 by 1200. This is not the bill of goods that we were sold. There is no magical firmware that's going to make this panel do native 16 by 12. This is a 768 panel at a really high price. And I get that if you had just sold it to me at that at specs, I might have rethought my purchase and been like, as an afterthought, but this isn't what I want. I was sold a 1600 by 1200 panel. That's not what this native resolution on this panel is. So I'm going to let people like Bob from Retro RGB, Todd from RetroFrog, and Greg from Laser Bear, who I have been talking to behind the scenes on all of this, trying to share my knowledge. Also, and Retro Ralph is going to be doing a review on this, and he's going to be talking about this too. So this is troubling because, again, like I stated, if you don't know what you're selling and you're acting according to their chat that, oh, this looks fine on real hardware, but that's not the point, folks. This is an LCD, and you plug 240p content onto an LCD that is not rated for that resolution. It's going to scale. It's going to cause lag. It is not a replacement for a very expensive 26-inch CRT. That's not how things work. This panel is not enthusiast level at all. It is less resolution than the panels that come in a arcade one-up at the moment. And again, just because the panel is reporting, or the board reports back with a 1600 by 1200 in the information, that doesn't mean anything. The panel itself does not have the pixels to push that. And that Tcon board is a big deal because that Tcon board states that it is spec'd for a 32-inch TV at 720p or 13.7, what is it? It's specs are 13. I'm sorry, I'm going to make sure to get it right. It is stating that it's 1366 by 768. So 768 is the vertical resolution. The horizontal resolution is 1366, but it's not giving you that. It's the panel is 1024 by 768. So those extra pixels on the left and the right are what you cut off. Again, this is a 768 panel. It is a 768 driver board, Tcon board. This is not 1600 by 1200. Unico, I would love some sort of reply. I would like some clarity with the community because that is not good. All right. I will, if I can find more information, if they reach out to me, you can reach out to me at my email address at admin at the Mid-Geek Crisis. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me at Twitter on oh boy, man. You know what? You can just go to my website, Mid-Geek Crisis, right there down at the bottom. You can find my link to all of my social media and reach out to me there, guys. But Unico, this isn't what you sold us. This is wrong. The website is wrong. This panel is not that native res. And why would you want to run that native res? It's because that's what you told us it could do. It can't.